So let's start off by selecting the principal BSDF. Let's just make this full screen for a second. So I'll click on this, I'll press Ctrl-Shift-T. This will bring up the Node Wrangler automatic texture connection system. And I'll just navigate to the materials folder and find the brick folder, and then I'll use that. And by the way, I've included this in the tutorials file so you can follow along with the same material. And then if you open it up, inside we've got different textures designed to be used with specific inputs on that principal BSDF. So we've got the bump map, so I'll select that one. We've got diffuse for the base color. We've got displacement. I'm not going to use normal because I'm using displacement. Sometimes if you use both, you'll get a bit of a strange result. And we've got roughness, and then we've got specular. I'll click OK in the bottom right corner, and that's automatically going to set all those up for us. Whereas in other 3D applications, very often, you've got to drag these in one at a time, wire them up one at a time, and then connect to the mapping system, which we'll talk about in a moment. You know, and it's a bit of a nightmare. So, yeah, it's a great feature. So let's see how this looks now on the rendered viewport. So we've got a nice brick material. Obviously, the brick isn't sticking out, so the displacement, although it's been set up for us here, it's not working. And that's just the same reason as before. We need to go into the material, change it from bump only to displacement only. And now we're still not seeing anything because we don't have sufficient subdivisions on that single plane. So I'll go into the modifiers and I'll add a subdivision modifier. I'll change it from Catmull-Clark to simple so that we don't get the rounding out. The Catmull-Clark will basically try and smooth everything, whereas simple will just make the subdivisions without smoothing it. We'll find a decent angle, maybe about here, and I'll turn on adaptive subdivision like before. And I'll turn up the scale a bit so they poke out from the wall a bit more. There you go, we've got a really nice looking realistic brick material. In fact, let me just rotate the world environment so we can light it from the right hand side a bit better. To do that, we're going to go into the world mode of the shader editor. We'll click on the image, the environment texture, and we'll press Ctrl-T. That's going to automatically create these nodes for us using Node Wrangler. And now we can rotate the world environment with the Z rotation. Now, you'll notice I'm rotating that and nothing's happening. It's taking a while to respond. To get around this, we'll go into the World tab. Under Settings, we'll change the surface from Auto to Manual. And we'll change the map resolution to something like maybe 2048. And that will mean that the world environment texture that is used for lighting and reflections will be a lower resolution without affecting how it looks to the camera. And that means it'll become much more responsive. So if I now turn this, you see we're getting real-time results. Let me just rotate it to get a nice effect on the brick. We'll zoom in a bit. And I'll go into the modifiers and I'll turn adaptive subdivision off and then on again to refresh it. And now we can see the result that we're getting. And let's go back into the shader object mode. Let's just come down to normal. So let's try disconnecting this, see if it makes it look better. Sometimes if you've got displacement, using the normal map or the bump map, so I'm using the bump there, isn't the greatest. You can probably either disconnect it like I've done there, or you can just turn it down a bit. Let's see what it looks like turned down. Maybe 0.2. 0.1 perhaps. I think it's better without it, so I'm going to get rid of that. Control, right click, drag. We'll cut. And you can find loads of these preset textures for various materials on loads of websites. If you just type into your search engine CC0 textures or CC0 materials, then you'll get loads of results where you can download them completely for free and even use them in commercial work as well. So I think we've covered everything we need to now regarding how materials work and how people generally tend to create them using either procedural or image textures. The next thing we'll do is how we can control the placement of these textures onto the 3D geometry. So I'll delete this plane now, I don't need that anymore. And we'll go back out of the local view, so isolation mode, by pressing / on the numpad. And we've got our picture frame back.